winter of 1978, the tranquil snowscape of the Lake Michigan area becomes the stage for one of the most baffling disappearances and reappearances in recent history. A student and avid skier vanishes without a trace, leaving behind a puzzling scene and no clues to his whereabouts. The search, extensive and thorough, yields nothing but dead ends and deepening mystery. Then, as suddenly as he disappeared, he reemerges, 15 months later and hundreds of miles away, with no memory of the time lost. His reappearance raises more questions than answers. How did he travel such a distance unnoticed? What happened during those missing months? Theories abound, from amnesia and abduction to other, more otherworldly explanations. This case file joined the theorists as they time slip into something a bit more comfortable in the mystery of Steven Kubacki.
Welcome to Alien Theorist Theorizing Case File 309. The mysterious disappearance. Oh, no, that's not what I was going to name it.
Boom.
Where in the world was Steven Kubacki?
I'm
Braden.
I'm Zell.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
Where was
back
he?
to him. Yeah, where was he? This is
I don't know. Oh, that reminds me of the Bobby Fischer. Steven Kubacki, where is he? I don't know.
and that's basically what we're talking about is a weird disappearance case, on the terms of, missing 411. And we talked actually kind of about another case. I'm just going to bring up to your guys' attention that we talked about. I don't know if we definitely didn't do a case file on it, but we've talked about it. You guys remember that Toronto firefighter?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fucking
Dude
went
that showed
skiing.
up with a haircut and a new phone, right?
Oh,
he went-
Yeah.
He was missing for 6 days. No recollection. Shows up in New York, goes missing on a ski trip with his buddies. Shows up in Sacramento with a new phone, still in his ski gear, and he's just like, his buddies were like, yeah, he was heading to
This
his
is not my
truck.
beautiful house.
No recollection of what happened to this day. Danny Philippitis or something.
Philippitis sounds right. Actually kind of makes him sound like a Harry Potter character, but that's fine.
Yeah. So he this scenario kind of reminds me of Steven. Some similarities to that case. But let's get into Mr. Steven Kubacki. Who was this guy?
Steven Kubacki was a student at Hope College, which is a small private Christian university near the southeastern shore of Lake Michigan. And so his whole story kind of starts when he seemingly vanished in February of 1978. So Kubacki, when he was attending Hope College, he was 23 at the time. There's some kind of dispute, I think, between like what exactly his, just for background information. It's like what
Pretty sure Steven Kubacki just walked by Andrew's camera.
Yeah,
Could be.
There he is. Wow. Imagine that's how we lined up an interview with this guy. He's just like, yes, I am Steven Kubacki.
Although he is, we do know where he is now. Apparently, you could look him up on LinkedIn if you really wanted to. Though he is he is well known for being reluctant to talk about his experience. Now, he was when he was attending Hope College, he was either a German major or a history major.
I thought it was a German history major.
History major might be. Double major.
The interview I watched with him, he kind of said German history major.
Yeah,
because pre this event, he had actually spent a year abroad in Germany. Studied, had a German girlfriend, came home, had gone back to Germany.
She was a teacher.
And
he was fucking Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Yeah. And, came back again. So he was very interested in German history and the German culture. Just like Dan.
I feel like when you study abroad, I feel like it's almost like protocol that you have to bang the teachers because it's like they set you up with like exchange
I mean, it's in the
students.
name. It's kind of in the name. You're studying abroad, right?
Well, when I studied abroad in Spain, I'm studying abroad in Spain, and like two of the student teachers that we taught with were like banging like two of the students on our trip. Like it's like I'm pretty sure. So I don't know. Now, when he disappeared, Kubacki was said to have kind of set out on a little bit of a solo cross-country ski excursion, which was something that was not wholly entirely unusual for him. It was something that he did. He was a bit of an outdoorsman.
Yeah, he was
an outdoor enthusiast.
Yeah, climbed mountain peaks. You know, he had avid hiker. You know, would do all sorts of like day trips and stuff. It wasn't
an Eagle
uncommon.
Scout.
Yeah, he would, he
He's
did
got all
the
the
proper
patches.
procedures.
All of them.
He'd give it check-in times with people when he was expected to be returned. And there was never any kind of issue like in all his travels before with him missing deadlines of coming back.
Interestingly enough, though, the one thing that people do account a lot prior to this trip, especially, is how excited he was. Because he did a lot of these trips, but this one he like never failed to tell somebody he was like close to or went to school being like, I'm fucking jacked about this trip. I can't wait.
And one thing I gotta say first and foremost is because this came up for me, Steven Kubacki might be the most cross-eyed guy I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's crazy eyes.
Yeah, it is. It is
crazy.
Like, part of me was like, how can you even navigate reading a map with those things? And like, watching interviews with him, he's had multiple surgeries pre-disappearance to try to correct that. And it's
I'm telling you, listen, though, you look at those eyes, and his eyes probably work like the bullets do in that Wanted movie where you can see around shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's...
it's something else to like when you watch him speak or talk. I'm like, because sometimes someone has a lazy eye, like Shawn Michaels or somebody, you're like, okay, the one that's fixated on me, that's the good one. The other one's the wandering. This motherfucker's got two wandering eyes. I'm watching, I'm like, dude, which one? Like, one will just kind of like wander into his head and the one will focus and then that one will lift up and the other drops down a little bit. And he even goes, yeah, my eyes do weird movements. I can't help it. I've had surgeries to try to fix it. I'm like, it's hard for me to watch, let alone I can't imagine seeing like that. Like, it's unbelievable.
Oh, God, I would be dizzy. Like, you imagine this would be like permanent nystagmus. It would feel like that's crazy.
And this guy, like, just some more background, like this, like blue collar family. He's a bit of a like, not a rags to riches story, but like, blue collar family, poor, and like he put himself into university. Like, he applied for it. He got these scholarships just by being like so bright and smart.
Well, yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah,
by all accounts,
he was known to be quite the intellectual on campus, like bit of the, hanging with the progressive crowd and whatnot. And Hope College at the time,
everyone knows the smartest kids in college play D&D.
Yes. Right, exactly.
And he was into
and Hail Satan.
And Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. So he attending Hope College was a bit of a back then it was like a bit of an affluent college. Like, I think it was like kind of like rich kids kind of went to Hope College at the time. So he was kind of stuck in there. He had come from the working class family.
His dad worked in a tire shop, not owned a tire shop, worked in a tire shop.
Yeah, so I think he was a little bit of an outsider from like the main, I guess the core of what normally the attendees of Hope College would be.
He's like the Matt Damon is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Like, how you like the apples, right?
He's sweeping the halls at night, solving fucking problems on the whiteboards.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, look at that guy. He could never solve those. You can't even see him.
Yeah, and so on his travels into Germany and these whatnot, he was a very I guess I can say he was kind of like a rebellious type of youth at this time. Like, he was kind of seeing himself as a bit of a revolutionary, kind of into the the repression and stuff. I mean, coming from a blue collar family, you're kind of like, burn it all down, right?
Yeah, especially when you're hobnobbing with all these rich people.
Yeah.
Well, he was big into
people.
into poli-sci. I guess they had kind of like a anti-establishment newspaper that like a pirate one that they kind of did low key that nobody really knew about. And I remember him getting kicked out of the poli-sci classes because he would just basically dominate the conversation and refuse to back down from anything.
Right.
Like, he just, and also, this is the 70s and sounds like he kind of was at odds with his parents because he was partaking in psychedelics as well.
Yeah. Any of that kind of stuff is like, oh, you're a communist, dirty communist. Like, how did we raise this communist child? So when he took off on his trip, which he was excited for, he didn't come back for a couple of days. He was gone for 2 or 3 days. That was unusual. And so they went out and tried.
Well, he missed the deadline to come home. He said, I will be back, at this time or by this time or around this time. And that point in time came and went. And
sure, it wasn't one of those like shitty jokes, the dad jokes where it's like, if I'm not back by this time, wait a little longer.
Well, maybe and wait, they did.
So yeah, I think the one of the things that was mentioned during our research is like, so they didn't throw out like a search party like straight away. Like this is this is the 1970s. Like this is prior to the what is it, the Brandon's
Michael's
law?
rule?
Yes, that's interesting. It's the Brandon law
or Brandon's rule. Brandon's law. Michael's rule.
Michael's rule. Yeah, one of those rules. And basically, it's like before then, people were like, adults have the right to disappear. And it would be like, if you're of age, they would not look for you because they're like, he can do what he wants, include disappearing. And then eventually they're like, I guess with the Brandon case, they were like, maybe if we had looked for this guy a little earlier, he would have been okay.
Think about all the male serial killers that we had that were going after like adult men back then. It's like, maybe
he's got the right to disappear.
Yeah. Well, it's so strange. It's such a weird thing to look back on that time. And you have all these movies where people would just like disappear and they would turn up. You're like, oh, you just work another job. You just leave town. And then you just turn up somewhere else and you just like work another job. And it was just like, nobody goes and looks for you or anything. It's just like, yeah, that is a strange time to think of something like that.
Andrew, as you talked about the disappearance, like when Steven kind of disappears, at one point in time, they had actually been like, thought he was a victim of
John Wayne Gacy. Yeah. They sent the dental records to the fucking Chicago police to see if it matched any of the fucking poor bastards in Gacy's floorboards.
Yeah, because Gacy was active in the area at the time. So they're like, oh, that's probably that's what happened. He has the right to die you have the right to get murdered in the 70s if you chose so, please.
The only thing I can think of scarier than John Wayne Gacy coming after you is John Wayne Gacy on a set of skis barreling down on a fucking hill after you. Could you imagine the poor kid like,
it's not even downhill skis though, it's cross country skis. So the guy he's in the tracks, it's coming right after you.
It's like it's like real life fucking ski free, except instead of the fucking Yeti coming after you, you got the killer clown. You're just both striding perfectly.
You can't trip up, not even for a second, or he gets you.
Oh my God.
That's actually a great game. Ski Free was a great game.
It's true. Oh, fucking great game.
Little scary too when you're like 8 years old. This fucking Yeti comes eats you get the
jump. But imagine if the fucking Yeti is John Wayne Gacy.
Terrifying.
Way scary. We should redo that game.
We should call it Steven Kubacki.
Would you like to be part of this new game?
Gacy Chase.
Gacy Chasey.
And you just cross country skiing, and then eventually he just comes. It's like a side scroller where you jump and duck the tree branches, and then eventually Gacy's just catching on you. And no matter how fast you go, and no matter what he's just always catching up.
Scary.
So the first indication that something was kind of really wonky with this is that this is from like a local news report in February 21st of 1978, is that you had a pair of snowmobilers in Saugatuck had actually spotted a set of cross-country skis that seemingly were abandoned with a backpack like kind of just stacked up kind of neatly.
Yeah, and the poles just sitting there.
Right, and the pools, yeah. And so once they realized that was kind of on, that was when they launched an actual air and land search to find Kubacki, because they were pretty sure who they were looking for at this point. So when the officers, the responding officers, like finally got to the area, they had found like what was assumed to be Kubacki's property. It was all just like neatly stacked. It wasn't stuff that had been dropped there. It was like stuff placed. That had just been put there neatly, orderly manner.
Not
almost
open,
like staged.
Wasn't the Dyatlov Pass thing too? They had like their shoes all in a row, and it was all like neatly like taken off and folded in their tent.
Yeah, other than the inside of the tent exploded from inside to out. But yes,
right.
But yeah, the
it was
same
ripped
thing,
open
right?
from the inside.
Yeah. But everything else was in perfect order. And this is like one of those weird things where you're like, this person's missing. And you have now this evidence of like, okay, their pack, their skis are set, that we're going to find whatever happened in this area here. We've like this. That's a pretty fucking good lead. I mean, for search and rescue, you're like, he couldn't have gotten far because his, there's no Gacy tracks behind him. So
yeah. And speaking of tracks, it was snowy weather, so snow was on the ground. So you'd think it would be easy to find a set of tracks, which they did. They found a set of tracks, about a 200-yard trail of footprints in the snow that kind of led past the edge of the lake, but then just disappeared.
Well, it led out onto the frozen lake. And then, like you said,
which he was known to do. He was known to transverse frozen lakes. Traverse.
And there's no broken ice. There's no nothing. The tracks just seemingly stopped dead. So they're like, did he backtrack in his own steps?
100%.
Where could he go?
He's seen it.
There's no there's no other path of steps anywhere other than they can see the tracks in. They have the skis. They have the footprints to the lake. Now nothing. There's no broken ice. There's no way he could have fallen through.
Yeah, but how cold was it?
Cold enough that it was ice.
So
the lake's frozen.
What if you broke through and it refroze?
Maybe.
Yeah, definitely could.
And that's the initial. That was the initial thought that the investigators had, was that something Kubacki had. In lieu of any other evidence that they had really to go on, they just kind of assumed that he had drowned somewhere under a layer of the unbroken ice. But they continued to investigate, going around asking questions. And there were a couple of things that they did find. But
the one thing that I question though is like, so why ditch your supplies?
He was ahead of the curve on the cold plunge, and there was a nice open hole in this lake. He thought he'd just do
it. Was it hardening?
Yeah, but then you'd find his clothes. Right? Like that's the other thing too. It's like people, you want to think like the paradoxical hypothermia where you take your clothes off. So you would have found his clothes. It was just his pack and stuff. So maybe he's trying to make himself lighter to go across the ice, or
I get why they would go to like a suspected drowning, because based on the skis and stuff in the pack, it looks like that looks like a scene that you're coming back to. Like you're putting this stuff here, you're heading out, you're going to come back to your like those are your fucking supplies, right? So weird.
It is weird. Yeah, dead end footprints.
So not finding anything on the scene, the officers turned to kind of interviewing and trying to find witnesses, the people who had maybe seen Kubacki in the days leading up to when they had found the his pack and all of that stuff. So there was a report that they had on February 19th and February 19th, a couple days before. Let's see, there is a couple that had seen a young man in that area who they said had been climbing atop a pile of like jagged ice and rocks near the shore. And the thing is that they said that he wasn't alone, that person said that there was also a young female that seemed to be with him. Or with the
doesn't that give you like that fact there of that young woman every time, man, like it just throws me back to the Yuba County 5 where it's like, these 5 guys who had, weren't with a woman, all of a sudden they're seen, someone says like, hey, I saw them with a pregnant lady, I'm pretty sure. And everyone's like, who the fuck is this lady? And then they go missing.
But also, this person looked nothing like Steven Kubacki. The guy had like pizza face. He was wearing different clothes. Like it's not Steven Kubacki.
She was like taking pictures, like a photo shoot, wasn't it? Like they seen her taking
like it's not.
Well, and then his roommates and people around, when they're asked, they're like,
he doesn't got any girlfriends.
Listen,
not here at least.
Yeah, I was gonna say the guy's got like 3.
Yeah,
they're just overseas. They're fucking pen pals.
Yeah, they live in a different country.
He's like,
he's sending them money every 2 weeks. He's sending them money as they date.
Lord Pantagandus, he's not hanging out with your ladies.
That was kind of one of the things when they were kind of, the police were going through his acquaintances and stuff like that. So they were actually, they went in and asked the dean kind of about him, kind of figure out what kind of student is, build up a profile, I suppose. And they were talking about, the dean was kind of like, I don't know, he was a big Dungeons and Dragons guy. He hung out with a bunch of with the weird crowd.
They call them weirdos.
It's like there's about 20 of them. They're all a little weird.
Yeah. Well, it's the 70s, right? These guys are all fucking probably smoking reefer, hailing Satan, and playing D&D. They're weird.
I can't even imagine
that was weird back in the day.
How big of a D&D guy you have to be for the fucking dean of your school to be like, Oh yeah, he's a fucking big D&D guy.
You know what? That,
Like
dean,
that,
that
like-
dean was playing with him. That's what.
That's the only way.
That's
or
the
else
only way.
this motherfucker was wearing cosplay at the school, right? Being in character before a campaign. Because how else is the dean being like that's the description you give? Oh, he's a big D&D guy.
I wonder, like, but that's probably just his way of classifying this guy as a fucking nerd.
Oh,
you know?
maybe.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Maybe
this
that like
guy's fucking-
that is this during the satanic panic kind of where people are like against Dungeons and Dragons
I think
kind
it's
of?
just that wasn't that
It's just a little bit
60s, early 70s.
That was probably a little bit after.
Satanic
Like, I mean,
panic.
there was still like there's a satanic panic, but I think that's apart from the D&D kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the
So
D&D
maybe this
It's the
guy's just
80s.
like, yeah.
Satanic Panic was
Yeah.
in the 80s.
Well, the
Oh,
one in
okay,
Canada was in the 80s, I'm pretty sure, right? After that book. Shells.
Starting in the United States in the 80s,
Oh.
Yeah.
and then spread to many parts of the world by the 90s.
Yeah. I think D&D was like, 80s was that was the prime time for like, it's got demons in it, therefore it must be evil, right? It's like,
Therefore,
okay.
it must be awesome.
Yeah, that too. So with the police going out and looking for them, like they don't really turn up any really solid leads about anybody kind of like seeing him after the fact, like, you know, going around and talking to people. It's like they don't really seem to run into anybody who's like, yeah, like this is something that we would expect him to do. It wasn't like, you know, from leading up to it, it wasn't that they got the idea or the impression that Kubacki was like, suicidal or, you know, showing any signs of being like depressed or any kind of like that. It seemed like he was just kind of going out there on a regular trip because he was excited about doing this trip. And there was no clue in to be like something he would do something like this.
Well, because when you look at his life, like at a quick glance, it's like, oh, graduating soon, right? Supposedly taking over his father's home. You know, his father's basically gifting him a house. You know, he's starting his life, young adult, getting ready to take on the future, right? Everything sounds good. So him just, you know, any other idea other than him just disappearing didn't really make sense. Or like, definitely this guy wouldn't go out and try and kill himself, anything like that. He didn't have any enemies. He didn't have any debts, nothing like that. Like he kind of had everything set up for himself.
Yeah.
Right. So it was
weeks
two
go
fucking
by.
German girlfriends that he talks to online.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
come on,
right.
Guy's
Yeah,
killing
yeah.
it. This guy's fucking killing it.
Yeah. Well, he needs two, right?
Fucking Helga and Olga, man.
He
Like,
needs
let's
one
go.
of the. It's probably one girlfriend, but he's so cross-eyed. He's seeing double.
Das ist tu ja.
So apparently, you know, but the case is like kind of fraught with a bunch of kind of weird things that kind of happen. So apparently in the first week of March 1978, so, you know, just a few weeks after the disappearance, apparently Kubacki's mother gave a call to the state police and said that a friend of the family had been actually getting phone calls that were directing them to make phone calls about Kubacki's disappearance. They were given like the family friend apparently was given like a list of names and numbers by these anonymous callers who pretty much like they told them to reach Kubacki at these numbers. Like they said that when they called these numbers, you know, of course they would, you know, trying to find him. They said that the number was actually disconnected. So Kubacki's mother actually went through a lot of old phone bills apparently that she had around the house. And she said that she had gotten a call from Steven from one of these numbers, apparently in September of 1977. So a couple of years before, you know, last year or 6 months before, sorry. And that she didn't know where that number was calling from. She didn't know. She only spoke to him for like 10, 15 minutes, she said, that she remembers. But she didn't know where he was coming from.
So, well, that's what I'm saying. Like that, and for the mom to be already suspicious enough to go ahead and do that already makes me like, oh, something's a little bit funky there.
Well, the fact that someone's calling, like that would raise suspicions for you.
100%.
And to be honest,
then
the police don't really care.
Well, and for her, because the case is closed, but it's
Yeah,
gone.
they're like
gone.
the
I've
police
seen the
are
first 48, buddy. I know it's toast.
they're
It's
like
over.
he's dead.
Yeah.
Like he's dead. He died. That's what's happened. He's died in the cold. We're not.
Yeah.
And no more
Easy peasy.
resources to this.
The mom had to be onto something. She's like, listen, this is fucking weird. Doesn't make any sense. Neither. And then another interesting, like none of the family bought into the fact that he was dead. They're like, there's no way. There's no fucking way.
Yeah.
The brother didn't believe it. The parents, like,
Well,
Yeah,
they didn't they have a service for him?
I don't know.
I think
he actually did.
At the school. I think the school had a service.
Oh, the school probably did. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, dude, this created a ton of trauma throughout the Hope College. Like people were fucked up from his disappearance.
Yeah, I think there's like a whole article. There's a whole printed article about it. Like people, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like, dude, your college is like on a lake. You're on one of the Great Lakes, and it's like, you know, it's one of those places that you would assume like drownings happen like all the time. Like this is just something that you'd be like, oh, okay, like, and you want to make people aware of it. So yeah, if you know the assumption is that Kubacki had died in like a tragic drowning accident, you'd be like, look, come on, don't go out there. Like, you know, come on. Guys, like
just don't go outside at all.
Yeah, and stay
it's not safe out there, especially in the winter
time. It's fucking cold.
Yeah.
Why you want to go?
There's enough weirdness to it. The fact that they're like, you know, it's known that like the footprints just stop. Like it's not. There's no definitive like.
It's the stuff placed. That's the weirdest for me.
There's
it's
not
staged, dude. It just seems staged.
Yeah, it gives off like a serial killer vibe a little.
Yes.
Like
right?
John
like
Wayne Gacy on skis.
He is
telling you.
I mean, this was the time that, you know, that serial killers were becoming, you know, popularized, I suppose. And so it's like, yeah, like you would worry about those things. It's probably a legitimate worry that they had. And like, well, like Andrew said, that they did think they considered it a possibility, you know, a likely enough possibility that they sent the dental records to those investigating the John Wayne Gacy.
That like,
murders.
honestly, that would be the fucking worst thing ever as the family. You're like, they're like, hey, can we get the dental records? We actually think we just want to make sure he's like not a victim of the serial killer.
Would you want that closure, or you just not want to know? That's my question.
Dude, that's a tough
What would you
question.
honestly? Where would you like?
I think you'd want to. I think you'd. It's probably twofold, because you'd probably submit it with the hopes that you're like, we're gonna just. He's still out there. We don't know where he is, and this is going to confirm that it's not this. I think that's what you'd be holding out hope for.
I'd rather be putting posters up every month for the rest of my life than know my fucking child was murdered by a giant fat clown.
Yeah, in his little torture house. Yeah, that'd be.
Yeah, no.
I think you still would submit them though, because you just want to be like, he wasn't there. I know that he's still out there.
Yeah, but then you're gonna find out for sure if he was.
Yeah,
like, oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, the clown got him.
Aside from, well, I assume they put up posters, you know, missing posters. The family did hire a private investigator from the Fat Man investigation company. Is it there? So it's like one half of Jake and the Fat Man. Like,
but it's PHAT fat is what I heard.
Yeah.
Was it? Was it really?
Yeah.
Really?
Pretty hot and tempting detective agency. That's a fucking good name.
All right. Yeah, so they hired them, but I don't think the private investigators didn't even turn up anything after like a few months of investigating. Couldn't find anything.
So this guy's just gone.
He's in the wind. He's just gone, and it's assumed he's dead. Like it's assumed that he had probably is what it would happen is you would go out there, and you know, when ice and snow and water and all that is involved, it's usually the most likely conclusion is that somebody, you know, he slipped into the ice and then whoop, and then gone.
Well,
and that's what they did, right? They did one last kind of big push when things started to thaw because they assumed his body would probably come ashore or whatever, right? And still nothing.
So when now you have this for months, like they're looking for him, and they can't find him.
This isn't the first disappearance of this area either. Like this is a hotbed. This is inside Craig's Triangle.
Yes.
If you narrow it down, the triangle, it's in a small, even smaller triangle called the Lake Michigan Triangle, where
Craig's Triangle encompasses quite a few different triangles: Bridgewater Triangle, Bermuda Triangle, Lake Michigan Triangle.
If you draw a line between 3 points anywhere on the map, you get Craig's Triangle.
One could chalk up all mysterious disappearances in North America to the Craig's Triangle. Actually,
yeah.
It could be a whole nother podcast on its own. Because every single crime and everything that happens in North America could be considered to do with Craig's Triangle.
I should write a book and just I should write it. They'll be like, it's a broader, you know, forget portals. Everyone's, you know, it's triangles. That's it.
They're
not looking at the big. You got to zoom out. You're not looking at the big triangle here, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
Yeah, the problem is that people moved on from triangles. You know, the Bermuda Triangle is kind of falling back, and it's like people moved on to portals and stuff. But no, we were right the first time. Triangles.
I'm kind of worried about you. I'm worried you're going to end up like that fucking Danny Casolaro guy, because this is like your octopus. But instead, it's fucking the Craig's Triangle.
The Triangle Syndicate.
We're going to find you dead in a bathtub with your little Murray floating in the water. That's not good. I don't want that.
Folded into a triangle.
Yeah.
You're like, he's not flexible. He could have never gotten himself in that shape. No one will believe you guys.
So yes, there is a Lake Michigan Triangle, which is known to have been the bounds sit between, I guess it's Ludington, Michigan, Benton Harbor, Michigan, and Manitowoc, Wisconsin. And those 3 points form like a triangle within that lake. And so this is the place where you have a number of most of the Great Lakes, it's like there are a number of shipwrecks that happen within these, within the borders of the Michigan
lake.
Triangle.
That's the thing with like you could triangle any lake with the amount of people that have gone missing on lakes. What's the fucking one lake in the Keys there, that the most deadly lake?
The Keys.
You're talking about
Lake Lanier?
The one we talked about.
Yeah, Lake Lanier. That's the one, not the Keys. Yeah,
the
Lake
Keys.
Lanier.
No, definitely not the Keys.
No, Everglades. Where's it?
The Ozarks.
Ozarks. That's the one. Lake Lanier. Like the Lake Lanier Triangle. Fucking dude, people just.
You heard of the Okanagan Triangle? A lot of drownings here. Quite a few.
Ton of drownings.
Not only drownings, but disposals, one would say.
Yeah. I think Okanagan Lake beat Lake Lanier last year in deaths.
I think it did.
It did. Last year was insane for us.
Yeah.
We had a lot of sacrifices to the Ogopogo.
Yeah. Craig's Triangle strikes
from
again.
the depths. Yeah. But the triangle is site for numerous shipwrecks, and probably one of the most well-known one is the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald in 1975. Which
is that didn't that one guy have a song about that?
Yeah, there's a whole song about it.
Yeah.
So
it's like an old song. Who sings it again? Because I just all of a sudden when you said that, I was like, the wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Talk about.
There's a whole song about it. I know the song.
Is it like Gordon Lightfoot? Who sings that?
Yeah, it might be.
I think it might be Gordon Lightfoot. The wreck
cool.
of SS Edmund Fitzgerald. I'm pretty sure it's a song.
Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Canadian legend. Yeah.
So, within those borders, there's a couple other disappearances that involve ships and even some aircraft at some point. And then also some mysterious disappearances, like one Captain George R. Donner of the O.M. McFarland is apparently said to have vanished from his cabin in 1950, just gone. And then also you had the Northwest Airlines flight 2501, which apparently disappeared over the lake with 58 people on board.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild.
I mean, these lakes are super deep, and it's just like, you can lose these things if they get in there. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Everything I heard about the sailing on the Great Lakes is like, it's not the super.
These lakes are actually connected to the ocean that lives under the Earth's crust that encircles
where
the
God's
whole
over
Earth.
lives. Yeah.
And these lakes like get some serious fucking waves, some serious
They're
waves.
huge,
and they go in all different directions. That's what they said. Like the lakes are like terrible for that because it's like if a storm starts up, like the waves can come at you from everywhere. They're not coming from like one direction. They're like just all over the place. And just
isn't it like in 2022 they had that Jack Soren went missing from Hope College, and they attribute it to the fucking triangle as well.
Triangle.
It's
right there.
Cool.
It's right there. Yeah. So there's a number of also, but it's not just like, disappearances thing. There have been reports of like UFO activity around the triangle, around or in the triangle, paranormal experiences, ghost ships and whatnot. So there's,
it's the Theubans. We learned about this.
We did.
We knew this.
We did.
know.
What did they call it? The illusion power that they have or whatever. I can't remember what we were talking about.
I don't remember.
So illusory projection or something. So now you have all of these things kind of like factored in as well. So you're like, okay, so maybe there is some, perhaps paranormal facet to this. But before we get into a little bit further about what is something that's even more extraordinary than the paranormal triangle, let's take a quick break.
We're back. Where we left off is Steven Kubacki gone. We're basically attributing this to chalk it up for another one for the Lake Michigan Triangle, like we said earlier, they
AKA Craig's Triangle.
AKA Craig's Triangle. They're having services for him at the school. The police involvement, everything's dwindled down. Months start going by, weeks turn to months turn to year, right?
He gone.
They've
given up.
How the first 48 is long gone, right?
So something even stranger than we talked about, like the paranormal pieces, is that on, well after a year that Kubacki went missing, on May 5th of 1979, Kubacki says that he woke up. He just woke up in a grassy knoll in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, over 700 miles east of where he had vanished.
That's just rises out of the grass. He's like, where the fuck am I? Who am I? Where am I? He's like, okay, looking around. He has no idea what day it is. He has no idea where he is. Like, his last memories are being cold and lost. And now he's back in Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Yeah. When, he reappears and he says that he had just like weird stuff, like just gone without him. He had no memory of the 14 and a half months that he was gone. He has no memory.
He didn't even know that much time had passed.
Straight out of a movie, he buys a newspaper.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa, what?
Sure, is this the right date?
You there, boy! What day is this?
It's the future?
Straight out of a movie.
He's like, he's not in his clothes. He has like a little, like fucking, basically like a little bindle sack, with some maps and stuff in it. He's like, I don't know what this shit is. He's got his wallet. He's like, this is weird. I'm very confused.
Yeah, like the only things that he had on him, he said that, he had a backpack filled with just like looked like maps.
And a farmer's almanac.
Well, he also had what looked like hitchhiking signs, like little cardboard, paper cutout signs that had different cities on there listed out from, looks like a lot of them from the West. He had Sacramento, San Francisco, Reno, Chicago, Utah, apparently were stuffed in there. He also had $40 in cash, apparently new glasses, sneakers, and he had a t-shirt from a marathon in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So random.
What a fucking wild thing.
Maybe this whole thing was about the marathon. Like maybe the guy just loved to run, right? And the town that he's from is like fucking Footloose, but for running. They're like, we don't jog here.
We run.
Jogging's been outlawed, boy. Ain't no son of mine's gonna jog. So he elaborated this. Yeah, right. Like we're power walking town.
Well, you know who else went missing for this long? Forrest Gump, when he went on his when he just started running.
I just started running.
Well, that's one of the things that Kubacki said, that apparently in an interview like that he did like a week after he reappeared, because he was up in the headlines like instantly, because it's just like
this is wild.
Reappears after a year,
man presumed
no memory.
Dead.
Yeah, after with no memory of the time that he's been gone, and he like one of the quotes from the thing, he's like, I feel like I've done a lot of running. That was what he said. And so it's like, he said he just felt like he woken up like kind of from a
legs
like a
are a little sore.
Like it's just like
But the other thing is like no one saw him and was like, he's dropped a ton of weight. They're just like, he looks the same.
He looks a little bit more fit, a little toner, like he's been running a lot. His cardio's better.
Dude, I don't know how this guy would run in a straight line. I mean this in the nicest way possible. Those eyes, dude, I'm gonna go back to that every time.
Hey, listen,
they're wild.
Maybe he just went out for a run and he got lost doing.
But the only run he's doing is in circles. Okay?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I took him. Marathon took 2 years.
If I cross
this marathon
my eyes,
took him 2 years to fucking finish.
It might take me 14 months to get out of the studio back into my front door. If my eyes were to cross that bad, it's something else. And it like you have to see it, because when you see it, you're like, they're so crossed that they're almost, you lose some of the eye like to the inside. You know what I mean? I'm like, he's looking more at his brain than he is at the outside world. You know what I mean?
His mind has just got used to it and has put together a perfect picture.
The perfect picture is what? That much? Do you crisscross, dude? It's
full of black spots. It's full of like dead spots.
I think, and I'm just saying, that's got to be difficult. I don't know what it's like to have vision that impaired.
Cross your eyes right now and have a gander.
Oh,
there you go. How does that feel?
Terrible. I can't even focus on anything. I instantly have a headache. No wonder this guy fucking has no memory. What just happened? I blacked out.
The most amazing part of this for me, it's not that he returned. It's the fact that he was able to return, and even fucking little old Roger Bowman's dad never came back. And that's even with the Angels winning the pennant in 2002. That's the fucking, you know what I mean? Like, come on. Even fucking Steven Kubacki made his way home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after he woke up on the thing, like he made his way. Apparently, he made his way back to like an aunt's house, I believe, that lived in like Pittsfield, which was not far from like. Apparently, it was like 20 miles from like where he was, and he made his way there. Ostensibly hitchhiking, which is like I guess, it's so weird to like talk about this thing because it seems like there's a lot of hitchhiking that gets done. And you're like, dude, like now when you think about hitchhiking. As opposed to like back then, like hitchhiking was just a way to get around back then. It was just like, okay, like, grab a ride and, off you go, anybody will take you anywhere. You can hitchhike, across,
I used to pick up hitchhikers all the time. All the time.
Yeah, you did.
Until
you did.
And this one person,
the
one
cops
hitchhiker
started getting too close to him.
Started disappearing.
He became a person of interest.
Until I was getting tailed by the cops because they were wondering where the missing people were going.
Yeah, one hitchhiker pointed the finger at him on a like,
that's the guy.
This guy in that Tacoma. He gave me some weird vibes.
No, I used to do it all the time until one time, right by the bridge in Kelowna, this guy hitchhiking. I was like, I'll pick him up. I'll drive as far as Glen Rosa. That's where I was going to my parents' house. He's like, okay, throws his bag in the back. He's like, 1 second, goes into the ditch, grabs a dog, like a full golden retriever, like big dog. And it's like, you mind if my dog comes in? I was like, no. You just put the dog in my back seat. It's like, whoa, it has to come inside. It won't ride in the bed. Ruined it I never picked up another hitchhiker again.
Yeah. Listen,
there was a dirty, muddy, disgusting street dog.
I thought this story was going in a completely different direction. I thought somebody's going to pick up a hitchhiker.
No, the dog ruined my back seat. Dog ruined my back seat. Wasn't welcome in. I never picked up. It's that guy's fault. I never picked up another hitchhiker.
Kudos to that dog because that dirty dog. Who knows how many lives that dirty dog's now saved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That dog's turned Zell off hitchhikers. He's got to find a new source. Right?
I mean, there are plenty of unsolved mystery episodes where it's like, these people are hitchhiking and they got fucking murdered. And
don't fucking do it.
It's
don't
crazy.
do it.
But yeah, back then it was just like, you're hitchhiking. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, ass, gas, or grass.
Crazy.
Now you just call a random stranger on Uber to come pick you up instead.
Yeah.
And you pay for it.
Yeah, that's true.
I pay for it. And then they crash over Meridian into parking lots.
Or they sign you to fucking partnerships for their global corporations.
Yeah, right. They teach you about equity.
This is true.
Yeah, so he makes his way back to Pittsfield, returns home. There was a tearful reunion with his mother. And they mom is happy to have him back. She's I think she's quoted as saying like she doesn't paraphrasing, but she's like, I don't need to know. She doesn't even dig into like really like where he's been. He's just back. She's just happy he's back.
The father says the exact same thing. Nobody's like, I don't care where he's been. I don't know where he went and why. We're just happy he's back. And they like are quoted at saying that.
And so
suspicious.
A little bit.
So they're just but they're happy to have him back. But thing is, also his parents has gotten divorced during this time. Apparently, his mom and dad had been divorced. Right. I don't know if they were in the process of getting divorced when he was leaving, but I think
he's finally gone. We're done.
He's a 23-year-old. He was really having a hard time with the divorce. He's like, my parents.
Like I think his mom had already remarried like by the time like he reappeared, like he reemerged. Like she was already like I think she had already remarried and taken like a new last name or so you had that going on, but they were just both happy that he was back. He had turned back and he's not dead. So after this, like of course this is a very captivating and intriguing story that you have, and everybody wants answers, but Kubacki and his family not giving him. He won't talk about it.
Well,
but not only that, he like adamantly refuses to go to any type of psychiatrist or anything like that to do any digging. He seemed interested in the beginning to find out kind of what happened to him, and then he pulled back on it massively, being like, "No, case is closed. I don't want to look into it. I don't want to talk to anybody about it, and I'm not doing any looking into it myself."
and it's not like the family was sticking. The family doesn't know because Steven doesn't know. And he's just saying, I don't know, and I don't want to talk about it. That's it. There's nothing else to say. I don't know. And everyone, all media and stuff, that's the same answer they get until he just shuts himself off from interview. He's like, nope, I'm out of the public eye. That's it. And, he quote unquote essentially vanishes again from the public spotlight because that's it. That there's a mystery. We don't know. And what's going on? I don't know. So he just vanishes from the public eye. Now, he doesn't really even make a resurgence. Like, this case kind of falls off, right? Like, it falls off the interest. The interesting thing to me is it's only come back in the era of social media as like this, basically this mysterious disappearance case of this person who would never talk to the media about it, and the story blowing up on TikTok and Instagram. But you got to think that this story has been kept alive through various writings and stuff since the 70s in order to maintain this level of interest.
Yeah, he popped up in like a couple of things. So when he was gone, I believe the Hope University actually granted him they granted him like a degree in absentia, essentially. So they gave him
what a scam. So he's just like, yeah, I'm like, degree. I got a degree now, bitch.
So he had a degree, and so he went on to. So he eventually becomes like a psychologist. Like, I think he became a practicing psychologist, and that's kind of like what he's been doing like for the last couple decades. Is what he's been doing.
He also wrote a book, The Metamathical Foundations of Existence,
Praxis,
Gödel, Quantum, God, and Beyond.
Yes,
quite an interesting.
Well, it's about Praxis or whatever. It's fucking weird.
It's like a 50-page book, co-authored by him and like another guy. So yeah, it's a very, I guess, one of those kinds of like deep thinking books, I suppose.
Type of thing you can do when you can see your brain.
Yeah. See how it works. They know all the secrets.
So yeah, he even in interviews as recent as you can find, the most recent interview, he will not talk about the time during the disappearance. He just flat out refuse. You ask him, how did your family? I'm not talking about my family. You're like, anything leading up to the day he will talk about. He will talk about his life post. He will not speak, comment, give a thought. He will not do anything of the time he disappeared.
And lucky for us, we have journalists like Ellen Kiloram who couldn't get anything from that fucking guy. So she did her own investigatory journalism and literally dedicated, I don't know how many fucking hours into this case and ripping through shit that didn't get released so she could try and get answers.
Yeah, she filed through a bunch of police reports. Like she got a bunch of FOIA requests, everything, pulled all that stuff. Going through a lot of the things, names, and some of the names and stuff are redacted, of course, like in the investigation that, either leads that didn't pan out or whatever. But all of that stuff's kind of protected. But, putting together this idea, putting out newspaper articles, because there was at least one newspaper article that came out that said that after Kubacki had made his reappearance, all of it had just been plastered over national headlines. Apparently there was a student from Berkshire Christian College in Lenox, Massachusetts, who went ahead and contacted the Associated Press. And then he reported that he had picked up a hitchhiker who seemed to bear a remarkable resemblance to Kubacki, whose photo was in the newspapers, and so it wouldn't be hard to be like, and I get, if he had the distinctive eye thing, probably was.
On what day was that? on what day was that, Dan?
So that was saying on May 5th.
The day that he appeared on the grassy knoll.
Right. So now this student, who's I guess identified as Ron Curtis, said that the hitchhiker, like they had a conversation, found him pretty personable. I think he didn't really have anything bad to say about him, but he had told him that he had flown from San Francisco to Boston and then had taken a bus to Pittsfield. The person, this hitchhiker, didn't refer to himself as Steven. He referred to himself as Nathan. He gave the name Nathan. And he had said that, he was just he was going to visit, a friend with news of a mutual acquaintance who had been missing for some time. That's what Nathan gave the reasoning for going where. And when he got to the place where Ron would drop him off, like he remembered that the address was the home of Kubacki's aunt there in Pittsfield.
Not only that, too, there was a little tidbit that I found in the actual report initially that she didn't put in the article, but he explains what he was doing in San Francisco, which is pretty weird. He was literally had
Eastern
flown
cult or something?
Yeah, an Eastern religious cult.
Yes.
That he was doing research on, and that's why he went to San Francisco.
Yeah, he was saying that he wasn't necessarily going to join this cult, that he just kind of
research.
He's just like, I wanted to see it.
I wasn't going to swallow the Kool-Aid. I was just tasting it. Okay, like
I was just mixing the powder.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like in to be a devil's advocate here, you know, let's just say you wake up missing time. You're like, okay, this is weird. You're like, okay, figure out what day it is. You're like, okay, this is extra weird. You have this stuff for San Francisco. You have these things. And you're like, okay, I know where I got to get to my aunt's house. That's the closest person I have. You get picked up by someone. They're like, where are you hitchhiking to? And you're like, you know, this person's house. And they're like, oh, where were you? And you're like, it's San Francisco. And they're like, oh, yeah, what'd you do there? And you're like, you know.
Yeah, that's like, a great. I joined a cult. I don't know.
But
my name's Nathan. Take me here. Like that doesn't make any sense. That's stupid.
Yeah, but I also feel like, okay, so it's somebody like an intellectual, like Kubacki is reported to be. I feel like he would say that stuff. Like he would just be like, "This is what I did, something really interesting, or whatever." Because to me, it feels like that him going to investigate or research like these cults kind of fits in with kind of the descriptions that he got from like what acquaintances and friends were talking about. Like, you know, when he went over to Germany, he was hanging out with a lot of like high intellectuals and kind of revolutionaries. And I think he even said that himself, is like that was one that in that mathematical, the book that he co-authored, he was talking about a lot of that stuff was gained, or the insights that he got was gained with his time spent traveling abroad and spending time among luminaries and revolution. You know, it was fucking like he went to some kind of fucking enlightenment salon, like French or whatever. But you know, so he's like, I feel like that's something he would say. Like, yeah, I don't know whether
I think that, well, if he did it,
whatever, it kind of fits.
I don't think that would be like on the fly excuse he would come up with because some guy's pressing him and he's got no memory.
So I feel like that's something like he had
100%
he had the hitchhiking signs. Like he had the hitchhiking signs that he had. That was obviously going to San Francisco and Sacramento. Like these are the places that those communes would pop up. Like, yeah.
And he's trying to be kind of clever with I'm going to go tell them news of somebody who's been missing for a long time. You know what I mean? Like it does sound like a pompous fucking dickhead, you know, would say that. Right? Like that's how you being an asshole. Like,
man, but the one thing that then still there's an issue for me is that how does he fool? Like let's not forget the footprints lead to the lake and then fucking disappear. They just
have you seen The Shining?
Well, if he's backtracking on his own,
backtracking in the footprints.
If he backtracks perfectly, right?
Perfectly,
the entire
this guy's a genius.
Listen, don't know, man.
He's an outdoorsman.
Have you not seen The Usual Suspects? Right? His eyes are normal. He's fooling you.
He hiked in with some type of like paragliding device. He hiked out to the lake. He unfolded it. He flew across the lake to the other side and continued on.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I did that by that.
He, you know, it's not one of the things that
his stuff is staged.
So this is one of the thoughts I had, and this is you know, getting more ancient. Even ancient aliens have covered Mr. Steven Kubacki, right? His disappearance of how he just vanishes from this lake. One of the things that I thought was. And the reason I say this is because Steven Kubacki is currently shopping out a book because he says a lot of the memories have come back to him, and he's written
the memories of retirement's expensive, so he needs to fucking cash into this.
But one of the things he said is
it's called. I'm sorry, the title's like the Quantum Biography of Steven Kubacki is what it's called. I think it's the title.
No, it's changed.
He's going to space.
Is it changed?
They said that was a little too pompous, so now it's the disappearance. What really happened to one of history's last unexplained missing persons? And he talks about, like, he said his experience is much stranger, but also much more believable than anyone suspects. And it dives into an idealistic terrorist in training, spiritual experiences with hallucinogenic drugs, and alternate realities.
What are you trying to call it?
So what I think the interesting thing for me is this is and I'm basing this on some personal experience and how he vanishes from this point is, we've talked about. I think what has happened here is he's gone onto the lake. He did this trip and he was doing some sort of mega dosing of LSD or some sort of hallucinogenic. And he just fucking got so high that he just fucking vanished into the veil, right? And he kind of time slips, right, into this area where he then experiences different areas of life that, different timelines of his life, where he's a marathon runner, where he lives these experiences, and then just as he comes out of it, he just kind of fucking we back into existence, and he's just like, oh, I'm in Pittsburgh. What the fuck just happened?
Are you mean like he did this all in his head because he was high, or that actually he actually disappeared?
I don't know.
Just got sucked into
we know he's gone
vortex.
for 14 months. Right.
That's what I mean. That's why. So you're like, he actually went through a different, due to the drugs. I'm just trying to understand.
Dude, I don't know. I took so many mushrooms one time that I died, and an entity was like, you died. You took too much, and then threw me back. He was like, here's a new timeline for you, and threw me back. And I fell from space back into a new body. Right. And I was like, oh, when I came to, I was like, oh my God.
That explains the rapid weight gain.
Steven Kubacki.
That explains the rapid weight gain. That's why when you were a fucking kid.
But it's like the fact that he just vanishes, man. Like that's the tough thing. You're not telling me that
he's
that
a
guy
fucking genius.
He's not backtracking with those fucking cross eyes.
He's backtracking.
Unless it's the usual suspects. You're talking that after the interview, he's just like, he's just.
That's what I said. That's what I just said, and you passed over it.
Oh, shit. I just caught on. I was like, you just thinking those eyes just like fucking.
You got everybody fooled.
Everyone he talks to, he's putting on an act. He just rubs his temples at the end of the day, and those eyes just straighten back.
I mean, really, he doesn't have to put on an act because he's just denied it. He just doesn't talk about it. Like, it's not like he has to put on an act for anybody. He just
I wouldn't talk about it either. I wouldn't talk about it either if I cost the fucking city thousands on thousands of dollars to look for me. Yeah. If I bankrupted both my parents, they both got divorced, I wouldn't talk about it either. Right? Just because I wanted to fucking take a gap year and use some fucking drugs and not explain myself because I was anti-establishment and fucked off.
But see, the interesting thing is because we talked about the firefighter guy, and I can't remember what it's called. I'm going to fucking botch it. Disassociative.
Well, we should talk about another one. Dissociative fugue state. Yeah, induced by trauma. I don't buy that at all.
And then that's what they say has happened to that guy for 6 days. And he's never got the memory back. But this would be unlikely.
6 days in 2 years or fucking.
Yeah, in 15 months are two completely different things.
This is a long con.
You think so? For this?
100%.
You think this is the payoff now?
I could also.
I know. I don't. I think the payoff is he's first of all he's a narcissist. He thinks he's fucking better than everybody. He thinks he tricked everybody. Secondly, I think he doesn't want to admit because he fucked over I don't know how many different people by doing this. Think about the fucking impact that didn't being a shitty kid and just wanted to fuck off. Whether he went back to Germany for a year to visit two of his girlfriends and didn't tell anybody.
They investigated that. That was one of the possibilities. I know.
So they looked into it because they didn't see his name on any of the fucking flight documents. But it's the 70s.
Yeah,
it's the fucking 70s. He probably sat there hacking darts all the way to Germany with a fake name and didn't give a fuck.
Right? You just walk into the airport.
Yeah, it's the 70s, man.
The other thing is though, he didn't go to a bank to take out money.
Again, it's 70s,
right?
Yeah, he showed up with more money than he had. But $40.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But if
he's going to go stay with his girlfriend in Germany, he doesn't need money.
To never have any money.
He's got the hitchhiking sign. So I wonder if it's some kind of combination of both the fugue state and the thing. It's I'm here. It's I woke up at some point. You're you got maybe he got the idea in his head and is
he was
whatever
right before.
And then he checked out for a second and then he's I'm halfway to you and hoofed it to Utah or whatever, hitchhiked to Utah, and he's I'm halfway there anyways, might as well keep going.
So part of that investigation that the journalist was doing, she ended up interviewing a guy named Robert Neat, who claimed to be a close personal friend of Kubacki, and he stated, like I talked about earlier, that Kubacki was extremely anti-establishment and a political activist. A lot of stuff that he learned when he was in Germany. Yeah. Also, he was a genius, and he would dominate the conversations in the poli-sci classes to the point where he got kicked out. So a week before he disappeared, he recorded a video that he passed around the school where he stated that he hated this country and that he was moving away to go live in Europe.
Or he made that decision on like,
that was a fucking week before he left. He's studying German history.
Right.
All right. He's obviously obsessed with the country. He had already been there where he lived abroad for a year. His parents are fucking divorcing. He's anti-establishment. He's not happy where he is. He's already close to graduating, right? So he's probably having this coming of age fucking panic where it's like, fuck, I'm looking at the rest of my life here. Maybe he wants to be in Germany. Maybe that's where he preferred to be. Maybe he went there and tried it out for a year and see how it went and fucking came home.
Seems weird for him to go all the way, and but you have the hitchhiking signs. That's the whole thing for me. It's like the hitchhiking signs.
Yeah, but he seems like the type of guy that would
come.
come up with a fucking plan. Like literally, okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to get a fucking T-shirt that says I was at this fucking
Wisconsin
marathon. And I'm going to get a bunch of fucking.
I mean, you could probably actually pick those up at like a Goodwill store, but that was like that was a recent marathon. Though.
This guy planned this out.
Give that right out to Goodwill,
but there was intention here. Like he plotted this out. This was a fucking plan.
So then again though, for that plan, let's just. Okay, to say I 100% agree with you. And some of the things make sense, but the thing that doesn't make sense for me is for him to go that far in the wilderness and he just has a drop pack and then he has another pack of supplies, or he just leaves everything. He's just like, I am walking out of here with my snowsuit.
That's smart,
right?
actually. Yeah, having a drop pack. I never thought of that. That's good. Right, I honestly never put a lot of thought into that because I'm like, he's an expert outdoorsman. He's done this fucking trip a million times. He's been there. He could navigate his way around there, no problem.
The problem for me again is,
so why would his shit just be placed there like that?
But if
I want you to find it.
Yeah,
I want you to find this.
Did he want to fake his own death? Like, is that
if you're backtracking? If you're backtracking on your footsteps, he walks out to the lake 200. This is what fucks me up. Where I can't get over.
Fresh snow covered him up. I don't fucking know, man.
So yeah, but
I don't know.
You're at the 200. You're out there. You're 200 meters out where his footprints stop. Right. There's two options in my mind. The first option is what you're saying.
One of his buddies, which was the snowmobiler that fucking led them to the stuff after the fact.
No snowmobile tracks.
He had accomplices.
But what I'm saying is, if search and rescue, they're not stupid. They're not stupid. These people that are going out and searching for people aren't morons. They know what to look for. If they're going and they're looking for the tracks and they see the ski tracks coming in and they see the pack down, they see the footprints. For you to back up on those footprints, you're getting to a point where you run out of footprints because you skied in. So now you have to explain how he leaves with no footprints and no ski tracks out. Right? That's, to me, is a big problem. The other option is the ice wasn't melted and he fucking rafts away. Like, I can't get over the hump of how does he get off that fucking edge of the lake and fool search and rescues if that's the case.
Did Polides put him in 411, missing 411? Is he in there? Yeah.
David Polides he's convinced that this is some sort of portal. Like he stepped into some sort of portal.
Not the Sasquatch.
Not the Sasquatch craft. Well, maybe Sasquatch fucking slang him over his shoulder and ran him out.
Fucked him into the portal.
What do you mean he stepped into a portal? Like there's a random portal on the lake?
There's not just right. Like there's places where there's time slips.
Did he open it with his mind?
And where there's these portals or whatever, and he steps into this and then just kind of reappears.
Makes sense for him to reappear on a grassy knoll. I feel like that's where portals would be.
And
national
the other
parks and grassy knolls.
Even if you talk about the Theobans that we talked about, you remember how they pulled him out and that guy, and they showed him different areas and then put him back. Like time was not the same for him, right?
Yeah.
And then
he dosed a bunch and he upped his vibration and vibrational frequency and just slipped. Whoop! Right? And then it sends you 700 miles to the east.
I cannot figure out, for me, is like if you ski in. There's only so many footprints. Like where did those go? They would have tracked them. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, okay, fresh snow.
How popular? I wonder, like, how popular are these paths? Maybe there was just too many, that they couldn't fucking differentiate his footprints from other ones on the way out.
Yeah, I wonder how many.
Because Lake Michigan doesn't freeze over very, very rarely. Maybe only like once or something.
Yeah, and I think if it does freeze, it's got the waves, right? It's got
it's got to be in like a bay or like a secluded part that will freeze, kind of, because it's such a huge, a huge fucking lake. Like It's absolutely massive. So wherever it's frozen, it's probably not very thick. So you
And it's like when it does freeze, I think they said when it does freeze, it freezes like in the wave, like whatever. Like it doesn't freeze like flat. It'll be like the weird little wave. So those can
probably
have been known to be treacherous to be in there.
It is weird. It just disappears.
Yeah. Like that's the part for me where I'm stuck. Like that get him off that lake. That's where I have the most problem. The other stuff, him sneaking to Germany, him doing all this, sure. But for me, it's like
you gotta get off the lake.
I got to get him off the lake.
I just wonder. I also wonder why the Wisconsin Marathon thought sure. Like why
just to fuck with people.
It raises so many more questions. With people.
Maybe maybe the footprints on the lake. Maybe they looked like human footprints, but maybe it was some type of like fucking bird that was like flying and jumping and landing, and like they kind of looked like footprints, and they just assumed it was footprints.
Like a goose.
That was just something.
What would be something? What would be accurate? I'm trying to think of like
a big fucking goose.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, it was some type of, it was like a rodent, like some type of bunny that was jumping in like a pattern looked like footprints, and it got scooped by a fucking hawk on the lake, and then it was gone, and there's no footprints. Maybe he never even ventured on the lake at all.
And that was just
coincidence that there was footprints that they kind of look like footprints been blown over with snow. Obviously, probably wasn't there wasn't an actual insole. Was like those are Sorels. Like, that's a Sorel boot right there. You know.
But then you're still leaving your fucking skis and then hiking through the snow to then make your escape.
It's so bizarre that you're like, he is an outdoorsman, but it's like, I'm going to go out into the lake. That was like the worst place to go. Like you're alone. You're alone, number one, and you're going to go out into frozen water, like on a lake. Like, what?
Well, I'm saying you don't if your goal was to be missing.
Maybe I'm
in
too old,
1978, like, no. you didn't need to fuck with people and leave the bag and the skis. Like you didn't need to do that. You could have just left. You could have just left, right? You could have skied to the next area, fucking thrown your poles in the ditch and fucking pieced out, right?
He seems like the type of guy that had a fucking thing for the theatrics, man.
Maybe he took an extra pair of skis.
Yeah, dude. I think he put a lot of planning into this. Either that
those,
or
right, right? You'd see cross country ski tracks. Is that thing?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
They don't get covered up easy. Like
it's either that or whatever happened to this guy was so terrifying and terrible that he's just absolutely so opposed to any type of regressive hypnotic therapies or anything like that.
Dude, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy that he's like,
or it's not even him at all anymore.
Yeah, it's another Steven Kubacki.
It's
it's a clone.
Wendigo.
It's an alien clone.
It's a Wendigo.
It's
plot
Kubacki
back down here.
717 or whatever.
It's not even him.
He's wearing a fucking Edgar suit, but a Kubacki suit.
Yeah, hybrid's just like, perfect. Missing person. Boom,
dude,
he's back.
Have we ever seen his eyes before? Maybe that's a problem. Maybe he's just not getting enough sugar water, so that shit's going all gecko.
It's malfunctioning.
It's like you can watch some interviews with him, but he's writing a book, so it says currently approaching publishers.
Here short. I think
I don't know why I'm such a hater, but I just fucking in my heart of hearts, I know this guy fucked with everybody.
I think that I think there's a large contingent that I agree with Andrew there. Like, this guy he doesn't want to talk about it because this is a terrible thing. But it's also that, like Brayden said, they're going to publish a book. So it's like whether if he bullshits the book, okay. Like, I mean, you'll read, some people will probably read it and be like, you're either going to be like, this is absolute bullshit. And then, or you're going to be like, this is kind of nuts. Like, he went and he joined a cult and he just went on. I think both his parents are deceased at this point.
He could have, if he writes this book, it's going to be called Forrest Gump 3.
Maybe he killed the guy. Maybe he's like statute of limitations are up on some crime he committed while he was out there or something, And so he's like, I'm going to publish the book now. Like, I don't know. But there'll be some buzz about it, I assume, because it's like, again, what did they say? What was the subtitle? The last unsolved missing person thing. He
says the story involves an idealistic terrorist in training, spiritual experiences with hallucinogenic drugs and alternate realities.
Okay. I mean, that part, yeah. But, he could, if he went to go, if the cult thing, like he said to the guy who drove him to his aunt's house, like if that's part of it, like it still sounds interesting. Like, I mean, yeah, it might sound like an outside move. And if this whole thing turns out, it's like, yes, he was lucid the whole time. And it's like, I did this intentionally. Okay. It's like, if you wanted to go and do that stuff, you could have done that anyways. I don't think anybody's going to really stop you, but yeah, it's just,
Why
maybe
didn't
the
they-
mystery will be solved. It was supposed to be published this year, and then they didn't.
Yeah.
And then it's supposed to be. I guess it's next year now. Like, I don't know. Somebody will post a review.
I mean,
We'll
his
have to-
parent, like he
we'll let
was
everybody know.
graduating. he was going into his dad's house. Like he had a path, right?
Mhm.
And maybe he just didn't want to disappoint everybody.
Well, he
And
was
just
on,
wasn't-
he was
he didn't
on
want to do
the
that.
rebellion streak. Like he's on the
Exactly,
rebellion streak.
anti-establishment.
Like,
I don't want to justify my actions. I want to do
Yeah.
what the fuck I
Well,
want to do.
yeah.
So
If you're
Possible.
interested in more, you can. He's got a website. Steve. I almost said Steven Kubacki. StevenKubacki.com.
Don't go to that one.
kind of
Don't go to that
websites are
one.
you looking
Don't
at,
go to
buddy?
that one.
Different one. One tap. If you for
That
other
explains
research,
the eyes.
for other research. It's fucking terrible. Yeah, he's got a website. He will not answer any questions. He says, "Ask a question," and then in the "Ask a question" section, it says he will not answer.
You will
any
not get
questions.
it.
Which
There's-
is, you can ask him about his day, anything. Any question that you want to ask him, he will not answer.
There was like a researcher I was watching their video about this. I was looking for stuff, and it was like he's like emailing Kubacki like just. He was emailing him like several times. I've got trying to get an interview, and he wouldn't get even a response from Kubacki until he like emailed like the guy that he co-authored or the book that he's the guy who's authoring the book, like the official biography or something. And he emailed that guy, and that guy said, "Yes, you can email Kubacki and confirm that we were friends and I'm publishing the book." And then it's like he emailed Kubacki back and mentioned that guy. He's like, "Yes, this guy, I know him," and blah blah blah. And then he finally got a response back. But that was like.
That's weird. It's weird, man.
It's super strange. Something worth following.
We did not talk
and-
about a theory of the week, though. That's okay. I think we forgot last couple of weeks.
Steven Kubacki.
Steven Kubacki.
He's yours.
Your theory. Thank you for inspiring this episode. You are the theory of the week.
We do have a few new Patreon supporters.
Let's go.
AlienTheorist.com. Hit that support tab. You know
They're
what to
the
do.
theorites of the week.
Theorites of the week are these three beauties right here. We got Jonathan Sweeney, Pyrador with a full year pledge, and Fizzle Nuts is back.
Nice.
Welcome back.
Thanks so much for supporting the show.
And as we always say at the end of these things,
Go Lions.
keep those eyes
Don't
on
do
the
it.
skies.
See you in after hours.